Hello there, my name is Enoch Omunu. I've been building on Botpress for 2 years and integrating AI assistants to Airtable. I've used Airtable in almost all of my client projects, and I've gotten so many requests from people in the Botpress Discord server on how to integrate and use it with Botpress. In this short video, I'll show you the 5 steps that you need to integrate Botpress to Airtable. So firstly, what is Botpress? Botpress is a platform that allows you to build AI assistants and chatbots. And Airtable is basically a database platform. So it's kind of like Google Sheets on steroids, essentially, and allows you to do a little bit cooler stuff with the data that you have. The reason that I connect them to Botpress primarily is that I can track client data in terms of the conversations that their customers are having with their AI assistants, but you might want to integrate it for a different reason. So here are the 5 steps that we shall be going through today. Step number 1 will be installing the integration to the workspace. Step number 2 will be about setting up Airtable. Step number 3 will be collecting your credentials from Airtable so that you can verify the connection and actually connect it to Botpress. Step number 4 will be completing the connection. And step number 5 will just be about testing the Airtable Botpress integration to make sure that it works a-okay. Feel free to skip to different parts of the video so that you get as much as you can out of it. If you're a business owner, I build AI assistants that help you convert more leads from your website, and you get to see all the conversations that are happening through Airtable once your AI assistant is connected to that. That way you can analyze those conversations to get insights on how to improve your services, products, and even the questions that people are asking often. If you're interested in getting an AI assistant built for your business, the link is down in the description. Click it and I'll see you there. If you're a builder and need some help with a Botpress project, send me an email with the email in the video description as well. Let's start. So the first thing that you want to do is sign into your Botpress account and then head over into one of your workspaces and one of your studios. Open a project, and now I set up this tiny workflow. This is what we'll use to test the AI assistant. So you can go ahead and set this up as well. It's just an autonomous node connected to a transition to transition out of it, and over here I just have a few instructions given to it. So just copy my exact prompt and paste it into your autonomous node here, and then you want to come down here and create 4 user variables. Select user, and the first one will be called name, so just type that and then enter it. Type email, do the same, and then phone, as well as AT object. But for AT object, you'd want to change the type to an array of options. As you can see, I've already created mine, so it's not letting me recreate the same ones, but you just want to go through that process. So step 1 involves you installing Airtable to your AI assistant. So just come over here into the integration hub, search for Airtable, and you should be able to find it pretty quick, and you should be able to install it. So you can see I've already installed mine here. Step number 2, head over to Airtable, and you want to create, first of all, a new workspace. So we shall call this Botpress testing. So the next thing that you want to do is set up an app on your own, and you should be taken to a page like this. Up here you can change the name of your base. Let's close Omni, and I'll just call this Botpress testing once again. And then in this table, you want to just customize it to include the fields that you want. So for the purposes of this tutorial, we need the following fields. So as you can see, I've created only 3 fields: name, email, and phone, because that's what I'll be using in this. But you can create as many as you need. And just because you're not going to use a field in Botpress doesn't mean you can't create it. You can create it as well, but just make sure that every single field that you're going to use in Botpress is created. But even if you're not going to use it in Botpress, you can create it as well, but you don't have to. So the next step involves collecting your credentials from Airtable. You want to come down into the bottom left of this page, and you should see a little icon for your profile. You might not be able to see it on my screen because of the size of this recording, but just click on that and then select Builder Hub, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. Next, you want to go to personal access tokens. And you can see I already have quite a few for all the integrations that I have, but you want to create a new token and just give it a name. So I'll call this Botpress testing once again, and add all the scopes available. So just go through this and select all of them to make sure that it has access to all the scopes that it needs to accomplish the various tasks that you will be working with. There's quite a bit, but yeah, we should be done. And then the next thing that you want to do is assign this to a certain base. So what you want to do is select add a base, and you want to search for the base that we've just created. So I believe we called it Botpress testing, and I can see that's down here. So select all current and future bases in this workspace, Botpress testing, and then just create the token. Now you should see a page like this, and it should say your token has been created with an ID over here and a copy icon. Click this copy icon. Mine is blurred because you need to keep this private for you. Don't share it with anyone else, but just copy this and paste it somewhere safe that you can come back to later. So for step 4, you have to paste in your credentials into Botpress to actually make the connection. So what you want to do is come back into Botpress after you've installed the integration. If you come into here, this little pile of boxes, you should be able to find the Airtable integration. Click on it, and you want to paste the personal access token that you just copied, the one that I told you to put in a safe place. Paste it over here, and then you can delete the endpoint URL. Now for the base ID, you need to go back into your actual base, into the actual Airtable database. And if you click on your URL, you should be able to copy your base ID, starting from the slash after the airtable.com and ending at the slash before the TBL table. So this app, and then there will be a set of characters that are in between the 2 slashes. So copy that, and then come back into Botpress and paste that in here as your base ID, and then save configuration. You should get a notification that the configuration has been saved successfully, and then you can exit this tab over here and we can begin to actually test it. So step number 5, actually testing your integration to Airtable. We'll start by testing it with an autonomous node, and then we'll test it with a standard node as well. So with an autonomous node, all that you have to do is come back into the prompt, and it will basically collect the user's name, email, and phone number and store them in these variables. So what you have to do now is first of all give it access to the Airtable tool. So if we leave this page and come back here into tools, select add tool and search for Airtable, and let's just select create record. So you should see it appear there. Then click on it, and we want to select the table ID or name. If we come back into the Airtable database, you can see that our table name is table 1. But if you want to use the table ID, you can once again find that in your URL. It's now the next section that starts with TBL after the app. So slash and then TBL, and then all of that before the next slash. Anyways, I'll be using the table name, table 1, and then we'll just leave this for the AI to fill in. But first, we need to actually give it the instructions to fill in that. So we'll come back into the autonomous node, and we shall tell it the following. So change it to the following. Just add this sentence here. Once you have collected these details, use the create record tool, and to input this, basically just click create record in the middle of your sentence and store them in the following fields in Airtable: name, email, and phone. So you want to give the exact names of your fields. This is if you're using the autonomous nodes to perform actions on your Airtable database. And now we can actually test it. So come into the emulator, send a message, answer the question, and it should say that your details have been saved. And if we come into the database in Airtable, you can see that enoch.dab2@gmail.com with a phone number has just been saved. So that's how to do it with the autonomous nodes. And you can go ahead and use some of the other cards here as well, such as creating tables, getting table records, updating a table, updating a record. It basically follows the same concept. You just have to instruct the autonomous node appropriately, and then give it the appropriate tool. But in the case that you're not using an autonomous node, you're using standard nodes, you can still perform the same action. So the first thing that you want to do is insert the Airtable create record card, and you want to put in the table ID or name. So I'll put in table 1. Then you want to change this little fields icon to the variable And in here, you want to put the name of this variable, user.at object. So I'll put in here user.at object, and you can see that that is an array. So basically what it will do is it will check what's in this array, and that is what it will input into the fields to be sent to Airtable. Now, the biggest mistake that people make with Airtable, and the reason I get so many messages on Discord, is because people mess up the structure of this array. They don't put it together properly, they don't format it properly, and Airtable is quite strict on when it's receiving data from this array. If it's not formatted properly, it rejects it, and so you don't end up filling your database up, and you get a lot of issues. So I'll show you how to do that properly. Over here in this execute code card, this is the format that you want to use for the array in the user.at object. So of course, as usual, an array always starts with these square brackets, a bit of JavaScript for you, and then you move on to inputting the correct objects, the curly brackets, inside it. Now for each object you put, you need to use field name or ID to define the name of the actual field. So name corresponds to name over here. So you can say I have a field called name, email, and fields called name, email, and phone. And if you come over here, you can see name, email, phone. And then you also need to select the appropriate type. So this is single line text, this is email, phone number, and that's the same thing over here. So this is single line text, single line text, single line text. So that I actually need to change. So I'd have to come in here and change all three of these to single line text, because I can see over here in Airtable that they are single line text. And then for the values, you want to basically now connect these to your variables. So you can see the value for this corresponds to user.phone, the value for this corresponds to user.email, and the value for this corresponds to user.name. So essentially what you're telling Airtable in this object is find this field in the database, and it should be of this format, and then fill it with this value, and the value user.name is Enoch. But here you can put something else, such as the user's response. You can play around with these. I'm sure you'll figure this out from here on. But actually, since this is single line text, I'll need to change this from number. So I'll just put that in brackets like that, and that should be good. Oh yeah, and by the way, the reason I've put this up here is so that I don't continuously have to type in my name, email, etc. again as I'm testing it. But now we can go ahead and try it out. If we come into the emulator, let me change this value so that we can see a visible change. So let me put 222.333.444, and let me change this to bob66@gmail.com. Now if I go ahead and say hi, you can see it's done all of that and it's transitioned here. And if I come into the Airtable database, you can see Enoch bob66@gmail.com and the phone number 222.333.444. So that's how to use it with both the autonomous nodes and the standard nodes. And that's step 5 done. But before you leave, I'll show you one last bonus tip, and this is for when you're updating records. So after you create a record in Airtable, you have the opportunity to store it in a variable. So what you want to do is come into new variable. Once again, you want to choose a user variable, because in here we shall store the user's record ID in Airtable. This is only useful if you're using Airtable to track users, but perhaps it might be a product ID or something else, and then it might not have to be under a user variable. But just for the purpose of demonstrating this, we shall say this is the user's ID, and I'll call this Airtable ID. Now here where it says store an output value in, just call it a random variable. So I'll say AT result, and it will put that as a workflow variable. After creating the record, you want to insert code, and basically what this code will do is it will look at the AT result, extract the user's record ID, and store that in the Airtable ID. So the way we do this is just come in here and type user.airtable ID is equal to workflow AT result .id. So it's basically finding the record ID of the new record that it has just created here. And I'll run this for a second so that you can see if we actually get an Airtable ID, and yes, you can see it. So Airtable ID record QBALIKLG, whatever. Now the reason we do this is in case we want to update that record, we might want to come back to it later. So now that we have the Airtable ID, the only way that Botpress can know which record to update is if you give it the ID of that record. Now we can come in to a later workflow here, and now we can use the update record card. So to use the update record card, you need to have stored some kind of Airtable ID beforehand, or you just need to know the ID, the Airtable ID that you want to, record ID that you want to update. But I usually find it more convenient after creating a record to always store the record ID of that record that has just been created so that I can refer to it later when I want to update that record. So just come into table name, select table 1. This is in the update record card. And then in the record ID field, you can just put in user.airtable ID. There we go. And then just do the same exact thing with the fields. So hit the X, and then once again in the field section, just select user.airtable AT object, the array. But basically you want to make sure that you've built the Airtable object beforehand. So you want to make sure that the array is properly set up with the updated field. So if you're updating the name field, for example, you'd want to make sure you've just put it in there with it in the exact same way you would have done as if creating a new record, but just change the values that you'd want to put here. You might want to put a variable here if the value is stored in a variable, etc. So I want to change the name to Henry. So what should happen is if I say hi, it should create a new record with the name Enoch, because that's what is in this create record field, but then it will wait for my next input. And I can see over here that a new record called Enoch has just been created. But if I run this again, because it's waiting for my input, it will now do these remaining 2 cards. So if I say hi again, it should say it's executed, and if you come into Airtable, you should see a little green glow over that icon and see that it says Henry now, so it has been updated. So that's why it's important that you store the Airtable record ID. If you know that you might need to update that record later on, you can either store that in a workflow variable if you're not going to need it after that conversation, but I recommend storing it in a user variable so that it actually sticks and you can always have it whenever you need it. So yeah, that's it, your 5 steps to integrating Airtable to Botpress. If the integration doesn't work, just reinstall it and try again, as we always do. But I've also attached the official table documents from Botpress in the video description below, so check those out if you need some extra help.